Well, we're talking about heroes or villains, and we're trying to determine which one we are. Okay? Now, again, I would say all you guys are heroes in this room. I'm in a room full of heroes. This is the best place to be. But once in a while, we might kind of divert into an area we shouldn't have been. And at that point, where are we with reference to God? We're talking about a lot of different people. Some of these people are heroes from the beginning. Not a bad word said about them. People like Daniel or Joseph. Not a bad word said about those guys. Not a single negative thing do you see that they did. Everything they did was righteous and holy. And then we've got some people like some of the great kings of Israel who nothing they did was right. Everything was against God. They were doing what they could literally to chase other gods. And so we see those are some of the villains that there might be out there. But sadly enough, depending on the day for some of these people, is which way they fall. Again, if you were to end their life today, they would have ended as a villain. Or you give them another day, they would have turned around and remembered that they made these huge mistakes and turned back. So as we talk through these things, I want to make sure that we are reminded of what it takes to be a hero. We've started with Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11 was our overall passage. And if you haven't read that, read through that. We're going to understand that faith is the most important thing these people have. If you don't have faith, you don't have anything. Now again, we need to start with the faith we have in our Lord Jesus Christ. And at that point, we can move from there to the great things that we can have faith for and hope for in life. But we have nothing without our faith in our Lord. So we start there, but these people had that. They started there. Now, some of these examples, one of the examples we're going to use today is in Hebrews 11. Even though I want to be honest with you, I have trouble claiming him as a hero. His name is in Hebrews 11. I just don't see it. But again, we don't understand his whole life. All we have is the little bit that we understand here. And so you're going to wrestle with this. I had to wrestle with it. Even my points today, I want to give you a caveat. I wrote these a couple weeks ago, and then I came back and said, I don't even know if the points make sense. You know, the word I'm using for villain, he's not a villain, but he is. And so I want you to kind of get with me. Let you determine where he is on this morning. But at any point, we can be on one side or the other. What are the qualities that make a great hero? And if you have some of those qualities, maybe you're on track. Maybe you're going to be the next one that's written about. As that cloud of witnesses is looking, they're cheering us on as the heroes of the faith today. Maybe that's where we are. But I don't want you to be on the villain side. So we're kind of wrestling with this. We're hearing some of the great stories of the Old Testament and the New. We're going to talk some about some of the best people and some of the people you may have forgotten about. Some of these great stories. Today's a crazy story, and we'll see if we can have some fun with that. But our overall passage for this whole context of heroes or villains is out of Romans 15. And I want you to say these first two verses with me, 1 and 2. They ought to kind of sound heroic verses to me if you read them. So here we go. Now we who are strong have an obligation to bear the weaknesses of those without strength, and not to please ourselves. Each one of us must please his neighbor for his good, to build him up. Again, you look at that verse. We who are strong have an obligation to bear the weaknesses of those without strength. It just sounds like a Spider-Man quote. Almost it does. Again, you see he's strong. He has to be strong for the weak. Even though he's reluctant, it's not what he wants to do. It's not what his life thought it would be. But this is the kind of person he needed to be. And so we're talking about that this morning. Have you ever thought about what makes a great villain? Have you ever thought through those questions? Again, I write some books, and I just finished my third, and hopefully in a month or two we'll have a plan on what to do with it. But you have to write villains in there because there's not much of a story if you don't have somebody fighting against the good guy. You got to have the good guy being fighting with somebody. And so what makes a great literary villain? If you're out there writing a story, I'm going to give you a few pointers in a minute. Again, if you read a book maybe in the past where your favorite character was the bad guy, he was such a bad guy, and you just loved he was so bad. Again, we all kind of like to wrestle with that. We've had a few of those things. I mean, what makes a villain so great? Like Darth Vader. Why is he just the best of all villains? Or Moriarty. Or the White Witch, if you've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Or the Joker. Cruella de Vil, if you want to get to the cartoons. Mr. Hyde. Why are these people so bad? What makes them such great bad guys? Well, I think there's a handful of characteristics. And so if you're writing a story, write these down to make sure that you got your villain just where he needs to be. This person, I think, usually they start out, they're very powerful. And this third character in my book is very powerful. They can make things happen at their will. They have the ability to make things happen. Now, it may just be that they're strong, physically strong, that they can manipulate something. Or maybe they've got magic. Maybe it's something like they're a femme fatale. They can just manipulate the men to do what they want to do because they have that aura about them. I don't know. Again, but usually there's something like that, or they're cunning. They're smart. They have the ability to make something happen in the end. So they're powerful. The second thing usually is they're intelligent. Now, they're not necessarily geniuses. Moriarty would be a good example of a genius, Holmes's arch enemy. But they don't have to be that way. They just don't make stupid decisions, which is where most of us go. We do something dumb. We make a mistake. Again, a true villain is always 2 steps ahead of the hero and considers every option. Again, you look at it, you love the James Bond heroes, but what's their biggest problem? They always end up wanting Bond to hear what they're doing in the end, and it gives Bond enough time to get out of his shackles and take them down every time. That's their weakness in the whole thing. Again, they shouldn't make that mistake. They should be more intelligent on that. The other thing you'll see, the third thing, is they're immoral. Now, usually they have a solid moral code. It just isn't the moral code that you and I will go with. They usually violate accepted moral principles. They have a code. It's just not our code. And so it's interesting as you write these characters, you look at these characters, but you also see the villains of the Bible are going to follow much of what we see here. Again, the fourth thing, which is the one that probably endears us the most, is they're wounded. Okay? They could have been physically wounded, but usually it's some emotional thing or a physiological aspect that they go through. This is what draws us in the most, because all of us at point in time have been wounded by something or the other. It's kind of gotten us off our game. We're not strong, and we kind of have to grow through it. We like it that the villain can grow through these things. And again, I'm talking literary villains. I know we don't like villains in the real world. But you look at the last thing, is usually they're determined. The truly formidable villain is possessed by an unstoppable drive to achieve his goal. Nothing short of annihilation will stop them. Now, even if you read the comic books, even if they're killed, sometimes they come back as another form of something, and they're going to go at it again. So not necessarily does it mean that that's going to stop them, but that's the attitude they have. Now, if all of us had that determination to do God's will, what could we do? Usually as Christians, the first little there's a step, I bet. Oh, it's a step. A step. I could fall. I might fall. Okay? We're afraid. We're not willing to stand up and be strong. So that's our biggest problem. The villain's usually going to make it happen no matter. He's going to jump off that cliff if that's what it takes. We Christians, we tend to get weak. Whatever little thing, this person's feelings might get hurt. I don't want to tell them about that because they might get upset. No, a villain's going to make sure it happens. Everyone likes a good villain in literature. But do we want to see one in real life? Let's look at a person this morning who had good tendencies and villain tendencies, and we'll see if we can get to the end together. Again, I've had to change my whole idea on him. Even though I have trouble with him, we're going to end up with him being a hero, but you wrestle with me. We're in the book of Judges, so I want you to open up there. If you've got your Bible, open up. I'll always have the words behind us, but open up if you've got it. We're going to be looking at it. It was written by Samuel, or one of his students. Again, Samuel is the main prophet through the book of Judges. And at this point, we know that he would have been relaying the information, or one of his students would have been watching and writing these things down. Somewhere around 1050 BC. We're talking 3,000 years ago, and it's still as poignant and applicable as it was the day it was written. All of us can learn about a great and mighty God through the reading of the book of Judges. And so it kind of begins at Saul's reign and ends at David's capture of Israel. So we see it's a long time. The whole process, the concept of the book of Judges, is to carry the story of Israel from the death of Joshua, when he had set up Israel, to the time of Samuel and the beginning of the United Kingdom. We've got a long period of time now. If you're wanting to read great stories to your kids, read through the book of Judges. Now, you're going to have a lot of questions. Little kids will be asking you lots of questions, and you may have to censor some of it. But at this point, you'll be all right, because there's so many great characters there. You could keep them busy for weeks and weeks just learning about these people. So we're in Judges 11, verses 1 through 3. Judges 11. Please stand as we honor God's Word. We'll start here. We're going to have to trek through a whole chapter. We'll just kind of pick and choose as we go. So 1 through 3. Jephthah the Gileadite was a great warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute. We had talked about one of those last week. And Gilead, what is his father? Gilead's wife bore him sons, and while they grew up, they drove Jephthah out, and they said to him, "You'll have no inheritance in our father's house because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Then some lawless men joined Jephthah and traveled with him. Let's just stop there. Let's pray. Dear Lord, you're mighty, and I thank you for these simple words, Lord. And let us understand what a hero or a villain looks like, Lord. Let us always follow you. We say all this in your name. Amen. Please be seated. Excuse me. A little bit of backstory. We're kind of in the middle of a book here. I want to get you up to it. Everyone needs a leader. We do. And without a leader, there's no direction. I had one of our own church members telling me about a big construction project he was on where they had 5 very good construction companies come in to build this thing. But the guy did not want to hire a main leader because it was going to cost more money. He assumed that each of these great construction companies could make this thing happen because the leaders of all the construction sites were great leaders in their own right. They could have led the whole work themselves. But it wasn't 3 or 4 weeks into this that they're all wrestling for the same person. Each of them needed the cement guy. It just happened the guy who scheduled him first got him. They want the steel guy. They can't get the steel guy. He should be over here, but these people scheduled him first, so they get it. The person who's supposed to be doing electricals now pulled at 4 different places, and he doesn't know which to go because they're all fighting to get him there. It's amazing how this guy finally, after a few weeks of this, even though all of these main leaders of these 5 different companies do great work on their own, they could not work it out without another leader coming in. This guy came in, everything was solved, and it was the easiest transition ever. But we all need a leader. Again, it's sad that it has to be that obvious. One of our members told me that story, and it was a great story because of it. The same is with the children of Israel. After they get into the promised land, they take up residency, they begin to drift off track. How often does that happen to us as Christians? Things are tough. We're looking to God. We're wrestling with Him. Lord, please be with me. I need your help. What's going on? I'm not going to make it another day without you. We get a few bucks in our pocket. We're sailing down the road making foolish decisions. It happens every time. It just does. Why is America so far off track? Because we've been so prosperous. Those nations that are seeking after Him, that's where the miracles are happening. Our own people don't believe in miracles anymore. They believe in the power of themselves and the power of the government to help us. It's time for us to get back to our simple faith of trusting a great and mighty God to take care of us day by day. Once we got comfortable, we've had 50, 60, 70 years of wealth. We're a nation that doesn't need God anymore because we can provide for our own future. And you know what I mean. I'm being facetious here. But this is the way most people in America believe, and that's why we're so off track. It's time for us to get humbled again, and I think God will do that. If you're looking for a great study, I hope you come and spend time with us in the Sunday afternoons starting next month. We're going to talk about what God might be doing with His country. We'll talk about that at the end. But it's going to be a great study, kind of a prophecy study. But this is what happens. The children of Israel, they intermarry, they worship other gods, they take up the practices of other nations, the very thing that He told them not to do. Don't do this. You can do anything else you want, but here's the 5 or 6 things I don't want you to do. Just don't do those. And what's the first thing you do? Adam and Eve in the garden, there's 1,000,000 trees. Look over there. Look at all the mountainsides of trees. Just don't touch this one. Simple enough. Stay away from that one right there. Look at all those. Have fun out there. What's the first thing they do? Let's climb the tree and see what we can eat. I mean, this is what happens. That's the kind of people we are. And sadly enough, they get fat and happy. They forgot the 40 years of wandering. They forgot that they had to rely on for God for food every day. They had to rely on Him for water. They could see Him out there every day in the fire or the light at night. These are the kind of things. He's in the cloud or He's in the fire. Again, so at some point, God puts judges over these people. One of which was Deborah. Again, you look at the history of the way God deals with women. He uses them in amazing ways. One of the first judges of Israel was a woman, keeping the men and the women on track. What a neat thing that is. These leaders judge, but they also eventually get official leaders, not necessarily judges. Eventually, they get to the 3rd set of kings. And this is not how God designed it. God wanted His people to follow Him. You don't need a king. You don't need an earthly guy who's going to conscript your children to work for him and go to war. Pretty much what God said. I will take care of you beautifully. Just let me be your king. And God's saying the same thing to us today. I mean, every one of these I could make a sermon on because it's so obvious what God wants out of His children. He just wants us to follow Him and let Him lead us. That's the best life we could have. This morning we're going to hear about one of the leaders of Israel, not necessarily a judge, one of the leaders of Israel. I believe him to be at best foolish. Okay, at best foolish. And we'll get to the end, you'll find it. If you've forgotten this story, you'll get there real quickly. We'll find it and be reminded of what I believe him to be foolish. He is written in Hebrews 11, so he must be a hero. There may be things we don't know about him that he did that got him the reputation to be in Hebrews 11. But I just see him as foolish. And let's see if we can work there. Okay? The first thing I want you to know is a villain, or maybe if you want to retitle it as a foolish person, can be qualified. They can be qualified. Look at verses 1 through 3 again. Jephthah the Gileadite was a great warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute, and Gilead was his father. So you kind of see some things going on there. Gilead's wife bore him sons, and when they grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You will have no inheritance in our father's house because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Then some lawless men joined Jephthah and traveled with him. We have several things at play. Let me see if I can set the stage for what you've got going on here. Because it took me, I had to read through it about 6 times to figure out really what's truly going on. There's a great warrior named Jephthah. Now, he was a Gileadite. His dad was Gilead. Okay? Dad started the country. So he's the son of the leader of the country. But his mom was not his mom. His mom was just the prostitute. And so at this point, he's never going to get an inheritance. He's an illegitimate son at best. Okay? But he's the son of Gilead, and he's a strong guy. Again, coming from a background like that, he's going to have to fight most of the time. So guaranteed from a young age, this kid's scrapping with everybody because he's the illegitimate son of the leader. Guarantee. The main sons are wanting to get rid of him. They're always fighting with him. This is what we see. So he's pushed out, and he becomes a leader of kind of a marauding group. Something like David did. Remember, David had his mighty men behind him, and they would go from city to city making some money and fighting wars for him before he became king of Israel. And so this is what we see Jephthah doing. He's going to city-states. Do you guys need warriors? Give me some money and I'll fight for you. And they were known well out throughout the region. Now that's one of the things we've got going on here in play. We also have the Israelites. They're fighting the Ammonites. Okay? So we've got Israel over here. We've got the Ammonites over here fighting. But we have the Ammonites stationed on top of Gilead. Okay? So you've got Jephthah, whose dad is Gilead. His dad's hometown has been invaded by the Ammonites. Even though the Ammonites aren't necessarily fighting the Gileadites, they're in their territory and they shouldn't be there. So at this point, we've essentially got 2 factions fighting together. The Gileadites want the Ammonites out, and the Israelites are already fighting the Ammonites. So everybody wants the Ammonites out of here. So that's kind of the background story here. Again, Gilead's been taken over by another state while the Ammonites fight the Israelites. Jephthah's hometown leaders, they come begging for help. Okay? And this is what he says. Look at verse 7. Jephthah replied to the elders of Gilead, "Didn't you hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why then have you come now from your trouble? Why have you come now? You drove me out of there. You've forced me out of your country. At this point now you're coming to ask for help? Who do you think you are?" Again, you want me to lead these people, but where are your leaders? Why are you asking me? I'm the illegitimate son. Again, we know there are qualities of a leadership. Do you have to be the wisest person to be a leader? We know Solomon was. Solomon was the wisest man ever. But I don't think necessarily that that's one of the qualities to be a leader. It's not a quality of a hero. You can guarantee some of the people in Hebrews 11 are not the wisest. I would consider Jephthah to be one of those. Let me get there first. You don't have to be the tallest. Saul was. Why was Saul chosen king of Israel? He was handsome and tall. Okay? I wouldn't have been there. I'm not over 6 foot. Okay? Wouldn't have been the guy chosen as king of Israel. But Saul was. But does that make you a great king, a great leader? No, not necessarily. Do you need to be the bravest? I think David would be considered one of the bravest. A little bit small guy fighting an 8-footer. Goliath. But not everybody necessarily written in Hebrews 11 is the bravest. At this point, they've got a guy who can fight. And that's all they need. Okay? So that's the quality that puts him to being a leader here. People are fickle. Whoever tends to stand out at the time is the one that's going to be the leader. That's why it's good that our country is at best a representative republic. We are not a democracy. Please understand that. Whatever you were taught in your high school isn't wrong. We are a representative republic. Again, we vote in, and then we have another group of people that votes for us. Okay? That way, as a body, if we make a foolish decision, they can correct it. That's what our founders tried to do. And this is what we have here. We have a fickle group of people. He maybe can get us out of this thing, and maybe we can move on from there. Again, when you look at unexpected leaders, and you look at sometimes the comic book realm, Mr. Fantastic is one of those. Anybody heard of Mr. Fantastic? Yeah? Okay. You may have watched a Marvel movie or two. He's one of those unexpected leaders. Reed Richards starts out as a child prodigy with degrees in physics, mathematics, and mechanics by MIT by 14. Talk about a smart kid. He's small, thin, and somewhat of a nerd because of his genius. And again, if you've seen any of the movies, you've read the comic books, you know how I'm talking about. On a space mission, okay, those guys are all over. He's bombarded with cosmic radiation and therefore can start stretching. His arm just can stretch, and he can turn into something like just a huge ball of something. He just starts to stretch. And again, another reminder, when you go outside, be sure to put a hat on, because radiation can do crazy things to your body. Okay? We know it by reading the comic books that anytime radiation's even anywhere around, crazy things happen to people. And at this point, this guy can stretch. Now, you might can make some money on the side doing something with that. But at this point, we see him that he grew to be the leader of the Fantastic Four. Did you get it? Grew to be the leader. Pun's the highest form of humor, and I just gave you one. Okay? That's what I believe. So whoever stands out tends to be the leader. This is what we see here, and this is what happens with Jephthah. Here, because Jephthah can fight and the Gileadites need a fighter, they'll make him leader, even after they kicked him out. They kicked him out, said, don't come back. You got nothing here. But now we got bad guys coming. We'll make you leader. It's just that quick. He's qualified because he can fight. Does that make the best leader? Does it? Is that necessarily going to lead us to future wisdom in the kingdom? I have trouble with that. I think we'll see. Because the Israelites and the Gileadites are fighting the same enemy. Essentially, at this point, Jephthah, who is not an Israelite, becomes the leader of the Gileadites and the Israelites. So he is now leading God's people. He's an ad hoc leader at best, but because he is doing these things, they're fighting the same enemy, he's the common leader for both countries. Okay, so here's what we've got going on. So we see a villain, or maybe a foolish person, can be qualified. The second thing, a villain can seek God. He can. Now, you know, if you read any comic books, and I know Nathan kind of keeps up with a little bit, and I need to get on him with some better things in the future. But there are plenty of comic book characters that supposedly follow God. Again, we're talking heroes or villains right now. William Stryker is a villain who would loosely fall into the camp of a person who tried to follow God. Now, if you know him, he's the guy who gave Wolverine or Logan the adamantium skeleton. He's the guy, Sergeant Stryker. Okay, he believed that all the mutants in the X-Men concept, again, all those people getting radiation, were devils coming in and trying to take away from the work of God. Loosely figuring out what's going on with reference to William Stryker. Again, they can be focused. Again, we're going to see here that he understands who God is. He has a love for God. Maybe. At least he respects God in his position. Again, William Stryker, he tried to do good things, but he made a whole bunch of mistakes along the way. Whether he really knew God or not, at least he respected it. Again, you listen to James 2:19. You believe that God is one, you do well. The demons also believe and they shudder. So you don't have to necessarily believe in God to understand the power that God has. Whether William Stryker was either or not, that's a comic book character. But here Jephthah, at several points, alludes to God and wants to make vows in the presence of God. Let me read verses 9 through 11. So Jephthah said to them, if you are bringing me back to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them to me, I will be your leader. The elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, the Lord is our witness if we do not do as you say. So Jephthah went with the elders of Gileadite. The people put him over themselves as leader and commander. And Jephthah is repeated at all his terms in the presence of the Lord at Mizpah. Okay? We see there's a problem from the beginning. He says this statement. Again, I have trouble with his wisdom. If God allows me to win, I will be your leader. Well, if God allows him to win, he is the leader. If he loses, he was a poor leader from the beginning. The statement from the beginning I have trouble with. Because If he wins, he is a natural leader. If he doesn't, he's a poor leader. Again, I have trouble with the way he thinks. And you're going to see some other things that he says that I really just don't understand the statement. Is he testing God? Or is this some false humility that he's trying to put in front of the people? Or is he really asking for God's help? I don't know. There's just not enough information here. But you need to maybe learn some things as we go. Okay? Be true about who you are. I'm going to go get to the end on what I think you should learn about this character here in the Old Testament. Now, at this point, the Israelites have just asked forgiveness from rebellion. You go back one chapter. Right the last few verses of chapter 10, they're begging God's forgiveness because once again they have wandered off track. So their relationship with Him is loose and dubious at best. Okay? They've removed all their foreign gods, but they tend to fall back into sin. This is what they were doing. And so right before we start here with Jephthah, we see them wrestling with God and asking forgiveness. Again, does God want His people to be saved, or does He want to reveal the foolishness of their leader? Is He going to restore them? Is He going to put them under the punishment of some other nation? We see that happening with Nebuchadnezzar later. Again, to get God's people back on track, He puts them under a whole other country. Okay, you've lost your right here until you're willing to come back. So I don't understand necessarily what's going on here. The leader does some odd and foolish things, but God protects His people in the end product here. Anyway, the people of Gilead, they make Jephthah their leader, and he repeats the terms in front of the Lord at Mizpah. Again, this is how he becomes the leader of the Israelites. The Israelites are at Mizpah, and he does his vow before God at Mizpah. Therefore, he's now their leader. Okay? We don't really see any other way that this happens. It's kind of an odd circumstance. But the people of Israelites are camped there. So we've got an odd leader for God's people at best. Okay? He's not a Jewish person. We don't see that God at any point appointed him. The Jewish people didn't vote him in. It's just a weird time in history where they needed someone to lead them, and he's evidently the best fighter. This is what we have for this person. Now, here's where we're getting into the problem. I want you to see where we're going and why I have trouble with him. So we see a villain can be qualified. A villain can seek God. A foolish person, a hero, whatever word you want to put there. I don't know how to define the terms on this one. A villain will make a mistake. Every time they'll make a mistake. They will. And this person made a big one. You look at Professor Moriarty. He made a large mistake with Sherlock Holmes. He did. When at Meiringen, Switzerland, Holmes and Moriarty go for a walk to Reichenbach Falls. Now, if you've read any of it, I know my daughter's read all of them. She knows all the stories. At this point, Moriarty's wanting to kill Holmes. He is. But he didn't plan on Holmes being willing to sacrifice himself. So even though Moriarty, that we believe, was almost superior intelligence to Holmes, he didn't anticipate Holmes to give his own life. Therefore, Moriarty was killed in the same process. Now we know later on there are more Holmes and Moriarty books written. But this is his end. He does something foolish. He makes a huge mistake. He didn't expect the sacrifice of Holmes on his behalf. And therefore, he made a big mistake. In our story this morning, Jephthah makes a mistake. Now look at verse 29. Here's where we go. The Spirit of the Lord came on Jephthah, who traveled through Gilead and Manasseh, and then through Mizpah of Gilead. He crossed over the Ammonites from Mizpah to Gilead. The Spirit comes on him. God is going to use Jephthah, whether Jephthah is the best or not, because at some reason he wants to protect his people. His people have asked forgiveness. They want something good to happen. So at this point, he's going to do something great. God wants to remove these other city-states from Israel's area. He wants to protect them. So he's going to use Jephthah to do that. Now look at verses 30 and 31 here. Jephthah made this vow to the Lord. If you will hand over the Ammonites to me, whatever comes out of the doors of my house to greet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites will belong to the Lord, and I will offer it as a burnt offering. What? What kind of a crazy answer, kind of a crazy question is that? What kind of foolishness is that? Does that even make sense? Did he think a whole bunch of sheep were living in his house? What was he expecting at this point? Again, there may have been some barnyards and he would have thought all the sheep come up to see him up the street. I don't know what he was thinking. Again, maybe his lazy boy was going to walk its way out of the house, or he had a cat he didn't like. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe that cousin that comes to live with you and watching your TV all the time, eating out of your fridge, maybe he thought he was going to walk out that front door. But either way, it's a crazy thing. What kind of vow is this? Did God ask him to make a vow? No. And yet he makes this foolish, foolish vow. What do you think is going to happen? It just can't go good. It can't. So if God didn't ask him to make a vow, why did he? It goes back to the earlier statement when I said I don't understand why he says what he says. If the Lord gives them to me, I will be their leader. Well, if the Lord gives them to you, he'll be the leader anyway. You don't need to say all these things. Sometimes the best thing a Christian person can do is just not speak. Maybe that's the thing we learn at this point in life. Maybe that's the quality of a person of faith. They can hold their tongue. They don't say stupidity. Maybe they don't hurt that person next to them because they think before they speak. Most Christians don't. Somehow I know we think we were given this right by God to say whatever's on our head because God loves us. No. You have the right to keep yourself quiet and contained and speak grace. That's what you have the right to do. If you're wanting to sin, you can do anything you choose. I've had so many people I thought were godly say ungodly things to me because they thought they were doing it in God's will. God doesn't speak like you just spoke to me. God does not sound like that. So there's something else speaking here. What is it? This is the kind of thing I don't know. Why would he say this? I think he gets caught up in the moment. Maybe he's not that smart. He's a fighter. He's a lover, not a fighter. I don't know what he is. But he's not that smart. He doesn't have what Reed Richards had, all these PhDs by 14. This is a guy who fought all his life. So why does he have all the caveats? Oh, God, I will do this for you if you do this for me. Maybe God was going to do it anyway. Why don't you just say, God, I'll do what you called me to do? Whatever. Win, lose, indifferent. I'll see how it ends in the end. Maybe I'm to be their leader. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm the person that's called. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just to get them through this war and let someone else take over. But to say all these foolish things. Well, anyway, he defeated 20 cities by slaughtering everyone. He's a good fighter. God made him victorious. The thing you need to remember is that God expects you to keep your word. This is the issue that even my wife and I were talking about. God expects you, if you make a vow to him. How many of you have been in those trenches issues where your life is about to be taken? You think you're at the end and you make this big vow and promise to God. If you'll get me out of this, I will do this. Think before you speak. Think before you speak. Think as you pray. Because God wants you to keep the vows you make. Look at Numbers 30. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or swears an oath to put himself under an obligation, he must not break his word. He must do whatever he has promised. Every Jewish Israeli person would have understood that. It was written before Judges. Ecclesiastes 5, when you make a vow to God, don't delay fulfilling it, because he does not delight in fools. Fulfill what you vow. Better that you do not vow than to vow and not fulfill it. Why did he make this vow? What was he thinking was going to happen? How could you have done something so stupid? Just of the odds of something else that you do love coming out of that house. Just the odds of it are there. And yet you're thinking, okay, whatever walks out, I'll sacrifice it on the altar. God didn't make him vow, but at this point he's got to keep it. Now, you know what? We serve a great and mighty God. At any point, he probably could have asked forgiveness. Lord, please stop me from stop this. Please, I can't. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm so foolish, Lord. You are big. Please forgive me. Maybe that's another quality we can learn. The people of faith ask for forgiveness. This person doesn't. Let's see what happens. Here's where it gets good. When Jephthah went to his home in Mizpah, there was a daughter coming out to meet him with tambourines and dancing. She was his only child. He had no other son or daughter besides her. So what's the first thing that comes out of the door? His one and only daughter. He made the stupidest, most foolish of all vows you could make that God never asked him to make. At this point, he doesn't ask for any forgiveness. He feels like he's obligated. That time period, you didn't go back on your word. You know, if I've done something stupid before God, I want to ask forgiveness. Lord, please figure out a way I can get out of this thing. His only daughter is going to be burnt on the altar. Jephthah, because of his foolishness, at this point makes God guilty by association. You understand that? Because of his foolish vow, he's now putting God involved in this thing. We know God hates human sacrifice. Deuteronomy 18:10, no one among you is to make his son or daughter pass through the fire. practice divination, tell fortunes, interpret omens, practice sorcery. The worship of Molech was awful at this time. They were sacrificing their children to Molech. God was not going to be part of that. But at this point, Jephthah makes him guilty by association. Because when he's sacrificing his daughter on the altar, he's going to say, I'm doing it for Yahweh God. Something God never asked for. How foolish. God didn't ask for this. To end the story. Verse 37. She asked for one little favor. She also said to her father, let me do this one thing. Let me wander 2 months to the mountains with my friends and mourn my virginity. She respects her dad, I guess. Linda's not going to fight him. She just wants an opportunity to kind of think about what she could have had. I mean, what a terrible, awful story. What a terrible story. Again, we know God hates human sacrifice. Eventually she comes back and is sacrificed. And in verse 40, we find out the young women of Israel would remember her 4 days within the year. They still do that. The young women of Israel will remember Jephthah's daughter. Again, they'll have some tambourine little bells hanging, and they'll remember the sacrifice that she had to go through. It's still something that is remembered thousands of years later. Again, Jephthah only leads Israel for 6 years. At another time, he has, let me quickly kind of tell you something else he does. He has this wordplay test. Now again, Jephthah is not necessarily our best example for thinking things through. It may have been perfect, but this is the way he does. To determine which of the Ephraimites die, he's got this wordplay. If they say Shibboleth, you remember this one? If they say Shibboleth, they'll live. If they say Sibboleth, they will die. That day, 42,000 people say the wrong word and can't pronounce it correctly. That's the way he determines if the Ephraimites are going to make it out or not. You would think if I'm in that line of 42,000 people, and I see these guys going here and they got a guy stabbing them, I'm wanting to figure out what they're saying wrong up there before I get there. That's where I'd try to be, but you don't know. Again, who knows what would have happened. Jephthah's, at this point, again, just with reference to me, he's not known for his genius. So what do we learn here? Is he a hero or a villain? Is he? I say, yeah, he got God's people out of pain. He took care of the Ammonites and everybody else around. But as a leader, he essentially was sacrificing humans on the altar to God. The scales, which way do they go? You and I really, it's not ours to make the decision. Because we do find that he's mentioned in Hebrews 11 as one who had faith. He did have faith. Maybe we're not necessarily seeing it here in the book of Judges. At best, he's a vessel used by God to protect his people. I would say if you learn anything by the lesson of Jephthah, this is a toughie. I can't just preach at it because I'm just conflicted. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he was trying to do and what his purpose was, other than to fight a good fight. It seems to me he caused more trouble than he helped. But who knows? Maybe we need to speak less and think more. Maybe we need to listen more. Maybe we need to understand God and what he wants for us better. Again, this is a person coming from the outside into the Jewish customs. He didn't know necessarily all the things that they were doing. He became their ad hoc leader because no one else was. Maybe that's the issue. But he's remembered in Hebrews 11. Again, he got in trouble by his words. God wants you to always follow your word. He does. But I think our God's big enough that if you make a mistake with your word, you can't ask for forgiveness and get out of it. Numbers is clear. Deuteronomy is clear. Don't make a vow. Ecclesiastes, don't make a vow without fulfilling it. So another thing maybe we can learn, if you're in a situation in life right now, we've all been there, where you think there's no way out. Again, we've heard of guys in the war making these vows to God. You get me out of this trench and I'll do anything. I'll be a missionary in Africa. We've heard those, and we've heard great stories where these people do those things and change lives because of it. But understand, when you make a vow to God, he expects you to keep it. He does. He's a man of his word. God wants you to live and to stay strong and to stay pure, to stay holy. So when it comes to Jephthah, again, maybe we can just think first. Don't say things. Don't just speak to speak. He did what he was called to do. but I think he made a lot of mistakes. So this morning, which one are you?